Is Trekland, and we are live. Today, a Star Trek ship saga from Picard 94 to Picard 23. Today, on episode 298 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland, from Portal 47 for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek, or most of them anyway. Hey, are we here? Are you all really here? Is it Tuesday? I think everybody's here. I think the chat beat me to it. If you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, welcome, welcome. Sound off in the chat right now. We have our great TTLers community. I'm going to do a topic of the day. Today it's going to be a little history lesson. And then I'm going to take a short break. We'll look at the Parrot analytics or not. And then I'll get right back into your chat. Not until then. If you're watching on Twitch and YouTube, you're seeing all the comments. If you're only on Facebook, you're only seeing the Facebook comments, just so you know. That's driven some people crazy until they run into their YouTube or their Twitch account. But no, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful time to be a Star Trek fan. It's just getting eerie how the world, despite itself, is falling all over itself for the Picard series right now. Even the old skeptics, even the old scuttlebutts are falling all over themselves. Now, there's still a few sincere critics who are not totally in love with Picard, and they state their reasons. I've had a couple of discussions online. In fact, I think that may be what we get into next week, barring any headline news. But it's really something to be there. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. I mean, I know how I feel, but what I feel is not often what the rest of fandom feels. And including a few little hiccups this week about who Shaw handed off command to. It's like, really? But that said, that's bubbling along all over the interwebs. Yay. Today, what I wanted to do is share a fun little story, and I've been debating how to do it for the last couple of weeks, ever since I knew this was a thing. So now that we've got a little bit more, now that we have a little bit more capacity here on Trekland Tuesdays Live, I thought I would share it today. All right. In fact, let me get the old microphone over here just a little closer, which will probably make things a little better. Yes. Hey, everybody. Many moons ago, we lost a great person in Star Trek who was very unheralded, aside from the fact that she was commemorated with one, maybe two Blu-ray special features over the years, especially with the movie sets. And I'm talking about a wonderful good friend of mine. Her name was Penny Juday. In fact, later on, she married Anthony Fredrickson, who was one of the art department denizens. Was a wonder with whipping up models and things, and one of the taping wonders of the taping days in the Berman era. Worked with, Mike and Doug and Denise and all of those folks. He was part of the original New York Mafia, by the way. But that's Penny's eventual husband. Penny was a Navy vet and I met her here when she's working in the art departments of the features as Herman Zimmerman's, not secretary assistant. She was the coordinator. She got the offices set up. She got things, all the apply. They're in the trailer here. Now, this is the Insurrection. This is from 1998. I met her in 94 when I was desperately trying to find ways to short circuit the bureaucracy of the awkward licensed world publisher pocketbooks and then the production while they're trying to do a production. And nobody cared about my deadlines, but I'm trying to get information out about Generations to cram into the first edition, the blue cover Star Trek Companion. And I'm trying not to blow my big chance to come out and do professional Star Trek and get ensconced with these people that I'd been watching their work and been a fan of for ages. And as I do that, John Dwyer, big John Dwyer, the set decorator who basically worked in retirement with Herman on the TNG movies. In fact, the last two TOS movies. aside from working with the original Genes on the last half of the original series, starting with Tribbles. Can you imagine coming into a show as set decorator and coming into a sci-fi show and coming in on Tribbles in the crazy 60s? No, Big John was so nice to me and got it and didn't care about the red tape and the bureaucracy and the paranoia and the turf battles. He was like, come on, get what you need. And we had no idea how much or how little I would need, but he was great. And of course, along the way, he introduced me to this lady, Penny Juday, who was also looking out for the folks, all the guys in props and set decoration and doing a lot of the running around too. And she came to me as I made rounds, surreptitiously, not totally slinky, but, not staying careful to be out of the way. But these are the offices, not the stages. And one day she said, hey, maybe you can help us out with something, Larry. And I said, yeah. She knew me by then. She was a fan herself, big time, which is what helped it out. But you kept it on the down low in those days. She said, we've got a prop in the movie, the Picard family album. And it's supposed to be filled with all these mementos. This is for generations, obviously. Mementos of the Picard life in a 2D format. And I should do this for a second. And I said, oh, that's cool. And she says, well, the guys, meaning the crew, it's easy to fill up with Patrick, next generation stuff. And you could put his father and his mother in from their appearances as guest one-off in Dreams and things from the series. You could put in fact, they recast his nephew for this, but you could put in his brother and all that stuff, the people who die in the plot. Spoilers. And she said, and we can find all kinds of like middle ages, medieval, continental Europe, French stuff and just say it's Picard family. She says, but we really have this between our time, even up through World War II and afterwards, de Gaulle say, from the 20th century up until the 24th century, there's a big yawning gap. And she says, everybody's trying to come up with stuff. And of course, if you've seen that Picard family album over the years, there is everything from Picard's Academy graduation invitation to a personal letter from Janice Manheim. I mean, there's all kinds of fun things. But I knew that the hardest part would be if there was supposed to be a Picard at every major event through history, there would be a big gap of just right after our current times. And of course, this was 7 years before Archer and the Enterprise. This was 2 years before First Contact even established First Contact in Bozeman, Montana with the Vulcans, the way it happens. This is 1994, remember. And I said, well, the one part of history that I'd always love to see filled out that's never been filled out, and hell, they're never going to touch it, so it'll be fun to play with, is the Romulan War and the founding of the Federation. As many of you know, that's the thing I've been wanting to see a series for, and we got so close with Enterprise. And so just for fun, I, I made a couple of hard copy news outputs. And what's amazing is these were just for fun, never thought they'd be on camera. When the movie came out, they weren't. And I went, oh, well, that was for fun. I took basically the heart of the old tech manual, Franz Joseph Snobelt's 5 founding members, including newly colonized and independent Alpha Centauri, and made them all the 5 founding, the Earth, Vulcan, Teller, and Andoria, or Andor, as we used to say, and the newly independent Alpha Centauri colony system, and had a lot of fun with it. But I made a Colonel Georges Picard, the military spokesman for Starfleet. And that's what the Picard was at this time in history. And of course, I've been a reporter for 10, 15 years. So this is a thing. I came up with a day. I was going to honor Janet's birthday, but I made it 2 days differently. So instead of 10/9, it was 10/11. And I just took anagrams. It's a graphic. In the best traditions of Star Trek, I took an anagram and made it my kids, my wife, my parents, and populated that for the names. Okay, fine. Movie comes out, it's not there. Okay, fine. Never thought anything about it. Just one of those funny little things we'd all keep to ourselves. And then comes the day when Star Trek The Experience is being put together, and it's being flooded with all these items. A lot of, like, the Nomad long had disappeared, dissipated. So things like original series props had to be rebuilt, recreated, almost all of them, including the Picard family album, which had an original, but they needed more than one. They wanted backups. They didn't want to put the original in the exhibit at Vegas. So Penny and folks oversaw a copy. Everything was copied out of the original and put in it, including, I actually did 2 of these. One was for the Federation signing, one was for the Battle of Sharon, the final battle of the Romulan War. And no, you haven't really seen it. I do have it, but I'm just going to stick with this for now. My brothers and sisters-in-law are in that. This was the copy of one of the books I, when we were working on the experience, the last days, and prepping and all of that. The world, again, Penny would turn it different to different pages so that people going through the exhibit museum would see a different page and something that was cool they hadn't seen in the movie. Well, of course, at one point, Penny was commemorated with her tour through the experience. And lo and behold, by the aughts and the coming of the digital era here and Memory Alpha, one day I'm flipping through and I see a Memory Alpha entry about this. They've taken a still from the DVD Blu-ray feature and made that. Took a still out of that and put it in Memory Alpha. So not only is it, I mean, you could have watched the feature, but it's flipping by. Well, now they've stillified it. It's there for all the world to see. It's very hard to read in this view. They took their best guess at it and pulled out everything. And of course, for Memory Alpha, and I don't blame them, it was a canon puzzle. Is it canon because it was inside a prop that was on camera, or is it not canon because this page wasn't actually seen? So, but they present the information, and you make the call. But it was there, and it was fun. And at some point in the years after that, I got a hold of someone at Memory Alpha and said, if you want to know the story, here's the story. All these names are anagrams of my wife, my kids, my parents. Who knew anyone would ever see this? So, okay, thanks, Memory Alpha. It was fun. And then on top of that, totally unbeknownst to me, but this is how things go slow motion viral. When our good friend and Enterprise veteran writer, Futurama especially, and of course now Family Guy, Dave Goodman, wrote his book, Federation, the First 150 Years. I had no idea till I saw it, read a copy. He took all those names from what he found on Memory Alpha that were canon in a vacuum. Up until then, nothing existed, so why not use these? And repeated them all for his Federation 150 Years book. Again, it's not canon, but it's seeing the light of day, which was a big hoot. I had a lot of fun telling him at Vegas that year, first time I'd be able to tell him, thank you for using all those names. And he's, I had no idea. But what else do you do? Well, now we've had a little bit of some population of names that could have been there, but it's not a big deal. There's totally good texture, not trivia reasons why Grawl and Shran and Archer could all have been delegates or maybe not, but the people who actually signed, whatever. It's still just a lot of fun, And then along comes those audacious people at Picard, even before Terry Metalis, who hire our friend Dave Blass to be production designer for Picard season 2 and season 3 and set the world on fire, starting with season 2, but oh my God, this year especially. And Dave's rehired the golden era art guys and gals, brought so many people back as the icing on the cake. But he has the sensibility to say, we're going to create new, but we're going to honor not the old, it's honoring the universe, because the whole point of this was to make it consistent, right? And it's the thing that, yes, a lot of people found lacking with the attitude that came out of the gate of modern Trek with Discovery, which it has since been retconning like madly until they made the big leap and nothing mattered anyway. So once again, it's been awesome to see what Dave did. So at one point, I have shared my opinion that all the Federation ships we see are too Terran-centric. They're too human-centric. We've got all these alien other members, like with all the Federation capitals San Francisco and Paris. Everything is Earth-based. Everything is Earth-based. They still even use our Greek letters when they're naming themselves, like the Deltans, much less the natives. Well, I hope they've got a native name. We finally got native names for the Romulans, if it's canon or not. But my thing had always been, I hate to see so many. And now there have been a couple. There have been a few filtered down over the years. I think somebody's had the USS Serac and Surak over the. Okay, well, those are easy. Those were gimmies, Dominion warships. But there's been a real lack of diversity, non-human, non-Earth diversity. So, good old Dave, as he did last year with all the ships that met the big vortex, put out all he's retconned. They pick ship classes working with Star Trek Online. I mean, the ship nerds, the ship pornistas are loving what's happening with this. They're canonizing ships from STO for one thing, but just that somebody cared and kept it consistent and all of this. And then in your microscopic views on your ship, bothering to tell you what those ships are, what the classes are, but then what the names, what the specific NCC numbers are. And then you go to Starfleet Academy, now at SoFi Stadium, that kicks off Picard. It's still when you're still in prime, not future, not alternate future, not past. You're in prime, and there's the ship row of honored ships and captains, and we read all about the Long de Grace and how Captain Uhura went to the Small Magellanic Cloud. There's all this text. Thank you, Jeff Mandel. Thanks again. All the text, all the ships picked out as highlight ships, historic ships. And all of that's going, yeah, and then you get the Skull Collection later, which is a totally different thing, which is alternate future, but still a lot of fun. But that's the kind of detail and nerdity they're getting into, right? I'll see your old Akutogram fine print on your forehead VCR. I'll see you that and raise you all of this awesomeness. So it became a thing for the alternate future fascist Confederation ships chasing La Sirena. Dave came up, he told me, nobody thought it was important. And he said, well, let's just designate these ships and give them names and numbers. And they're like, oh, no one's going to know this or care. And he says, no, we will. So they got them named and numbered, and they're all Badmirals from the Prime universe. So if you're not keeping up with this is again why you should follow especially the Instagrams, but okay, yeah, the Twitter feeds for Dave and so many in the art department folks, the veterans and the newcomers, as well as the writers and other creatives. They're sharing all kinds of great behind the scenes when they're allowed to by the spoiler police at the studio. But retcon wise, and especially when new shows are dropping, watch the days after. There'll be all kinds of fun stuff. And so retroactively, they named those pursuing ships like for the CSS Quinn and the CSS Doherty and the CSS Pressman, and I think it was fun. So they've carried that feeling on this year times 100 because we're not in wacky future. We're in prime all the way through. We're in the real world, and we're around Earth and space dock and all kinds of ships. We're going to have lots of excuses to see ships all season long. And one of the cool things was there's several scenes where there's just ships flying by in the background. And like the Borg Vortex scene last season, the Armada opposing or keeping watch over the vortex and what might come out of it. There's all kinds of ships flying around. And Dave has been sharing what they are. Well, at one point, he asked me, he said, what would you think would be some names of non-humans that we can put on some of those ships? And I said, oh, hold on. We've never had a ship name for a Tellarite, for one thing. And I think we got the Shrash at some point, the Thylax Shran, I mean. The Shran. And that's a Jeffrey Combs thing. So I said him some names. So he's been retconning that. So now we have the USS Ajitbur, Gorkon's daughter. Even though it's Klingon, it was like historic galactic significance. So there's a lot of those coming from different directions, and 2 or 3 of mine coming in. Well, at one point, I still didn't see a Tellarite name, although one did creep in. Ancient Tellarite came in. But I'm thinking like Gaff and Grawl from Enterprise. It's not exactly an abundance, Star Trek writers. Let's get some more Tellarites out there. Beyond Jaglum Pog and Dr. Noam from Prodigy. So I reiterated that. He says, well, I've got 2 more ships. What do you think? And I said, well, we could do any of these, or it would be fun to maybe, and I'm indulging. How often do I indulge, gang? I said, maybe we could go back to some of those names that were on the news clipping I had. It would be cool to make them canon. Okay, I'm being selfish. So, Dave comes up with this scene where he's got ships. I know, this is actually Earth back here. You can't tell. And Discovery is a Discovery. Leash. The Titan A is about to leave orbit. And, infamously. And so he took a couple of the names off my list and has shared this now. So it's not. So we now have. Oh, I'm covering this up. We now have. There we go. The USS Tijan and the USS Sarad, which if you go back to. Okay. Go back to the Federation Day story. Tijan was the ambassador from Vulcan, and Sarad was the ambassador from Andoria. They also happen to be anagrams of my wife, Janet, that a lot of you know, and my stepdaughter, Sarah. Her older brother, Nathan, is Nathan Kell here from Teller. And in the news story, I actually got to have the Andorian and the Teller ambassadors get into a little bit of a brouhaha, which was a funny little in-joke here. And just to say, the Earth ambassador here is Thomas Vanderbilt. That was my dad's first 2 names. And Titus Olite from Alpha Centauri was my mom, Olita Titus, in later years. And of course, here's the USPA Major General Georges Picard. Yes, that was intentional. Was the Picard who's involved here, who was the spokesman. So that was fun. I didn't know he was going to do that because I gave him some Tellarite names as well. And then, of course, they got the treatment. So not only did they call them out, but here they've done the full workups. Yeah, they're all the new Reliant classes, which is kind of replacing the Miranda class. So there's the Tijan, and there's the Sarad. Oops. Slow. There's the Sarad. They're both the classes. Now, I told him what the birth dates would be if they wanted to use birth dates for the NCCs, for the registry numbers. But, true to this is, I have to bow down here to canon. He didn't go off with custom birth dates, which when I was a kid, I would have screamed about that. So both the Sarad and the Tijan have class fitting NCC numbers. The registry numbers are within that's been established for all the other ones that are popping up, and you can go find them in his collection. Just so you know, I wrote that piece 4 generations in the summer of 1994, obviously. Contributed that over. Here is Janet to Jan, as she was at her desk right about that time when she was temping on Voyager before she got to work full time. And this will knock your socks off. Here is Sarah and her brother James, the day we moved in August 1994. And just to throw it off, her really let you go, her brother James, that's Cadet Alice's dad. For those of you wondering. So anyway, okay, little story. That's one of the little wonderful, it's just a little thing that I was able to do then, and it's come back around nearly 30 years later now. And there are all kinds of little stories like that. I enjoy tracking those kinds of stories over the years when the writers would name people, planet, ships for people in their lives, good and bad. Brandon used to name bad ships after professors he hated. But I'm tracking that, and I have a whole new generation of that to track that I'm behind on. But we have a whole, if you've got the TNG companion, you'll see a lot of that in the TNG episode stories. But the art department, of course, brings a lot of it to themselves over the years, starting with Mike and Rick. and Jeff Mandel, all of those gang, sticking things in their graphics that we love to track. And thanks to Dave Blass, those kinds of things are happening now. But there are, John Eaves is constantly honoring people from aviation. Again, it skews Earth-based, John. That's my only complaint about that. If we could just honor some of our famous alien aviators, it would be a little broad-minded. But that's what Dave is bringing to this. Not only the nerdity of fun little in-joke stories and getting all the ships with something that everybody can grab onto. Why not? It's also kind of a rebellion, I think, against the cut and paste fleet. Although the cut and paste fleet has now been retconned as intentionally just that. It was meant to be a massive fleet of the same exact ship over and over again for ease of modularity coming back from the Dominion War. But finding out that wasn't the best idea after all. But it's been retconned, so yay, because that's Star Trek, and we do care about all this shit, or the whole thing wouldn't have lasted. You could have all your great characters and all your great commentary and all your great reflection of society and all your great inclusiveness and diversity and forward-looking. You could have all of that, but it wouldn't be Star Trek without all of us feeling like it hadn't been rebooted 7 times in the last 55 years. Some of that's a little harder to swallow when we have the big gaps coming back, but we get there. We get there. Given time, you can gap fill, you can canon smooth anything, right? So that you wind up with texture not trivia hashtag. And until anything is on screen, we've got canon in a vacuum, which was where this story started. Who knew, as so many of us find in our lives, as so much of us find with Star Trek, who knew that the goofy emergency, I need people, the guys here, they can't fill up the album, we need stuff inside in case they want to shoot it and flip through pages, we can't have empty pages in the middle. Who knew that the fun little thing I was privileged and lucky enough to get asked to do, even though the world would not see it, eventually the world saw it. And now the world is seeing even more. So I think there's plenty of room for different ambassadors at the signing of the Federation Charter, the Federation Constitution. I think there's plenty of room for that. And so my hat is off to Dave for doing that. That was very cool. The canonista in me should have been pulling from more Tellarite names and some other random ones, but I'll take that. Sometimes you grab what you can when you can. So I've been wondering how to share that little story with everybody. I just have. Maybe we'll make a short version for down the line. But for right now, there you go. A little history in a week when we are historically loving a modern Star Trek. Up and down the line, it seems. And in a week when a big section, and I did a special last week, I hope you saw it, a big commentary about the news last week from the streaming industry and the top levels of Paramount Plus affecting the funnel down to what's happening, the future fate of Discovery, and by ripple effects, what's going to happen across all the Star Trek franchise right now. So maybe not 6 years for Discovery, only 5 seasons, I say, short seasons. Will we still have 5? Will there still be 3 live action series, or is that part of the cut too? Section 31 and Starfleet Academy keep getting mentioned. Are those due to be rolled out together? Will one still be ahead of the other? They were mentioned at the beginning. You'd think Section 31 would be first with Michelle Yeoh and with all the long development that it's been there and then set back and put on a back burner and then brought forward. Different people have had their hands on it. But unlike Discovery's multiple parent birth, this is not being done in the crucible of time and money and got to be rolled out. So Section 31 will have the time to breathe before it sees the light of the world, assuming that it happens, of course. But people keep talking about it. Yeah, lots of people keep talking about it. Who wouldn't be if something wasn't happening? So if that's occupied your week, distraught about that, I invite you to go over and check out my commentary over there this week. But otherwise, that's going to do it. That's going to do it. Everybody's waiting for episode 4 this week. I do second opinions now talking about Picard. We can talk about the Picard here in the comments if you want to, too. Or what else is going on in Trek world. Wherever you are, whatever's going on. It's an interesting time to be a Trek fan. It's an interesting time to be a Trek creator. I just hope that some of those gaps that open up for future shows involved this gang of guys and gals that we've been talking about today, with Terry Matalas being in a lead slot. And because I know then he would bring along Dave Blass as his production designer. So what do you think, gang? I hope you enjoyed the story. Hope you enjoyed the history. We can talk about anything in the credits here in the comments when we get to it. And I want to thank everybody also who's been liking our viewership on YouTube has shot up. It's not melting down yet, but it's multiples of what have been the last 2 or 3 years. So I appreciate everybody watching A Second Opinion. I appreciate everybody watching live, leaving your comments on YouTube, but most of all, liking and subscribing and sharing off of YouTube, because that's where the world that pays attention, that's where the analytics are going to turn up. Hi and bye, good old Facebook, but you're increasingly becoming irrelevant as far as what we're doing here. But still love you, and we reach so many people on Facebook still. All right. I'm going to take a short break right now. We're going to, if you are leaving us, I should say this. If you're watching this later, not live, I wish you'd give us a chance if you ever get a chance to. 1 o'clock Tuesdays Pacific, 4 Eastern, 9 o'clock UK time, 10 o'clock Central Europe, or thereabouts. It's live. But yes, we got a great group here. You could join in the live comments, but whenever you're watching this, please leave a comment below. The comments section has been blowing up the last few weeks too, with these and with Second Opinion. Love to see that happening. And I get in and talk. So, especially for the folks who come later. So thanks everybody for the shout out there on YouTube. Our TeePublic store, I think there's a sale coming this weekend. You might want to look for that. Otherwise, I have to, of course, thank our new lineup. We've got some new folks in our Patreon. So for the first time, I get to say these particular names. Thank you so much for our TTL Club. To Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Ryan, and Mona Mian, and Andrew Jazimski, and our live wires, Albert Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hohensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, and Casey Shafsky. I say that, it's our Patreons. Simple, $5 and $10 a month. Love that. The Patreons are our live wires. How many months have I been apologizing? Our live wires are now able to access, yes, our early generation Portal 47 weekly guest interviews, which actually the Portal 47ers of today don't have access to. I need to work on that too. But we're finally all there with our Vimeo library and sharing those. I did a big catch up. So thank you again, Patreoners. Thank you again, live wires. We're thinking about making some more upgrades here on the Trekland channels. So please, I invite you to, it's patreon.com/Trekland Live. Very simple. Very simple. Appreciate the support as we grow things here. Hopefully some surprises coming up just very quickly in the next few weeks. But what's not a surprise is Trek Files is still on hiatus. We will be for most of this month. We'll be back later this month. But you can still see the back 9 seasons, the catalog at Trek Files on Facebook. You can find all the podcatching, but that's where the documents are, is Facebook. And all the podcasts at podcastroddenberry.com. If you're looking for me around the ways, it's at Larry Nemechek on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And yes, YouTube is Larry Nemechek's Trekland. Please like and subscribe. And portal47.net. We've had a couple of new portales in the last couple of weeks. So appreciate that too. It is your mini-con all year long, no matter where your center seat is in the world. thank you so much for being with us today. I will be right back after a quick break. But until I see you later, if not live, um, stay woke, everybody. Check the sources. Stay healthy. Do all the things. And trek well. Alrighty. Well, I misspoke earlier. I did not prepare any Picard, any Picard parrot analytics. So, do you want to stay just a moment and let me actually look them up? Because I can do that very quickly because we've got keys here. My thing is, they've been behind, as you know. The Parrot Analytics is a company that is using their own metric, their own algorithms to check what's happening with the digital onlys. You folks have been, what do we do? We started this in 2017, and by that fall, we're watching the parrots. Yeah, they're only up to the 24th of February. They're a week behind. We'll see what Picard's doing on the digitals. Picard was number 3 2 weeks ago as far as their weekly. It was at 45 times the popularity. It was ahead of you and Ted Lasso and Titans and Animaniacs and 1923. Ooh, don't get too cocky there, Paramount Plus. Wednesday and The Witcher. Stranger Things and The Mandalorian were the top 2. Still not in the range that the digital shows were ages ago. And just so you know, Stranger Things was the only thing strong enough to be in the top 10 overalls. We're talking about the US. We're talking about the factor that they use measuring everything online and then comparing that across the 500, 600 other shows in the country of all kinds in the US. And they do this market by market. We look at the US every week because it's right there on their website. And so it's peaking. So Picard's doing really well. I would just say this is so token. This is almost like keep those cards and letters coming in the old days. If you are doing anything, anytime you post, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, especially, anytime you do anything online, I think Parrot Analytics metric doesn't need a token hashtag, but hashtagging doesn't hurt. I think they're reading Picard or certain keywords. But just to say, if you want to help the ratings in the old ways, make sure and tag. Make sure you at least repeat Star Trek or Picard when you're leaving something online. All right. And with that simple parrot look this week, let us check the chat. Chat check. And I saw you guys got into the session a little early, which is funny. But hey, if you are new, I will give you a shout out if I'm correct. But I love to see everybody here. I'm hoping if you are new, you found out we've got a great community here. We have a lot of the shared chat pack with some of the other live shows, but yeah. Everybody catching up on your weather, on your local politics. There we go. And here's everybody saying hi. Good to see everybody. Oh, Michael. Since before your sun burned hot in space, I have awaited Trekland. Well, that's the idea. Let's see. So many folks. Okay, everybody getting there. Yes, this is haha, Scott. I didn't tell you what I was. I think I mentioned this a week ago, but I didn't share that this time. Hello, Jacqueline. Jacqueline Bouvier Murphy. Were you named? You had to be named for Jackie Kennedy, or is that your real name? But in any case, hi. Glad to have you with us. Dr. Dave, good to have you in between classes, maybe. So there we go. Boy, we've got such a big TTL crowd. It takes 20 minutes. This is like the beginning of Zoom Church or something. And yes, I remember what those look like. Yes, yeah. It's just Penny died too soon, and then within 6 months, Anthony did too. I swear to God, it had to be from a broken heart. It's very sad we lost them, but someday I have to do a whole biographical wrap up on Penny. She was one who was trying. She was getting paid from the fact files, which begat the official Thick magazine in the States, which begat the collection of material that's now the core of the Eagle Moss archives. And whoever winds up with that when the dust settles now. But yeah. Yep. Yeah, you go back a ways, Dave. Absolutely. Yes. See, this is the kind of thing today. People say, Larry, you should do a book. Dan Madsen's doing a book. Doug's working on his book. People said I should do a book. Our little story today is something that's, if I'd written a book 5 years ago, wouldn't have had a final chapter too. But talking about people like Penny and so many other ones, little stories and the big arc is something that I could see a book would be worthwhile, because it's hard to do this in these little bits. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I guess I'll find out. Probably because that's a prop person's trick. That's a prop master's trick that's the simplest thing from stage props is you do T to turn pages yellow. Let's see. So Charlotte, apparently you missed nothing at all. Let's see. Yes. Well, Linda, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm not even into the heart of things. Andrew, you spent 4 hours of your honeymoon at Starts with Experience. Was your +1 with you, or was she indulging you and patiently waiting? I'll ask if nobody else did. Hey, Dave. Now, see, I don't know exactly what you're reacting to, but maybe it went up from there too. Hey, David. Good to see you. We've been talking off and on, right? Offline. Definitely seen that before. It's on the bonus feature. Yes. Canon in a vacuum is a good name. No, it's like if there's nothing else on film, then go see what the fandom or the professional fandom brain trust has done. Go see what the books and the comics have done. And then maybe a lot of things get picked up and used that way. If I started thinking, we could do a whole show on what was never on canon, what was taken from books and comics and game manuals, because it was needed, didn't exist. And then later on, hopefully the fanboys and fangirls, given time, either in the writing room or the art department, visual effects, they just said, well, why not? Why not? We're getting increasingly more and more that way. There was, before the geeks won, geeks penetrated all aspects of society, including entertainment, to be even geekier than they were before. But yeah, canon in a vacuum is what I came up with years ago. And then I started and then I brought it to the hashtag age because it was a concept that I used all the time. Sylvester McCoy and Peter Davidson, doctors, appear on Trek since they're related to one of the characters from the episode The Neutral Zone. Yeah. See, that was the big temptation when they remastered TNG. Mike fixed some of those, but they left an awful lot of them in. Duralta, you're all here for the Rehansu. I don't think they've ever done that on screen, though. Yeah. Yeah, see, I hadn't kept up with whose memory baited an explanation for Delta. Lots of detail getting injected. Well, that's what we're all about, is the details. I know those characters do something emotional too. But really, what are we really all here for, right? I'm kidding. Gotta learn the word Badmiral. Yes, and a couple of weeks ago I came up with Bapton, talking about what Shaw was not going to be, but what people were afraid of. So hashtag Bapton once again. I'm claiming that one. Let's see. Yeah, the CSS Kinsey, at least the CSS Jellicoe. Of course, people will debate whether Jellicoe was a Badmiral or not. Bapton. Yes, he was a Bapton then, a Badmiral now. But he's on Prodigy, so he can't be bad. So, see, I think Jellicoe was premature. Definitely, though. Definitely, though. Yay! Yes. So to Jan and Sarad. Yep. Well, thanks, everybody. I can see I had the right idea in 1999. Yeah. What now? Rylar Chemarek, wouldn't that work as a name? Yeah, I think so, Duralta. I wouldn't have gone there, but sure. Now, in the scene right before he dies, Bob O'Reilly, who was one of my first Star Trek actor friends, told me he was going to throw something in and see if they'd get away with it. In the big War Council scene, it's Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, I think, penultimate show of DS9, where Worf kills Gowron finally and then gives the crown to Martok, or the robe to Martok. But before he's dead, Gowron is talking to his generals at the table and his admirals, and Bob said he was going to say something about, he was going to just throw in a name or two and talk to people, as an aside, an ad lib, and throw out and start one of his lines with something about General Namek, but it got cut. So I could have been something besides a rattletrap killer alien shuttle. There's family canon. Boom. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't give them a shout out, Susan, but you're absolutely right. Hector Ortiz and Thomas Marone from Star Trek Online. They've had a whole separate thrill just seeing first last season and now this. And of course, they've all had to sit on this for 2 years because the Picards were done back to back. And they were on to the season 3 material almost as quickly as they were doing the season 1. So, yeah. It would be great to have a piece of. I don't think the Nineveh survived. I don't think the Nineveh survived Wesley's final mission. I'm not full screen. Say what? What? I'm being framed? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm looking full screen now. Okay, well, maybe we'll just redo this a little bit later. Oh, I see what you're saying. You want me to be this. Okay, I just realized it. Yes. And now you know the rest of the story. Very good, Andrew. You go back you're as old as I am. Now, Duralta, are you kidding me? There's no excuses. People just aren't thinking out of the box. It's the same thinking that made Paris the president's office and San Francisco. San Francisco, okay, we'll give it to you. But then you have to compound it by making. See, I always wanted a storyline where there was rumbling in the Federation because everything was so Terran-centric. Everything was so human-centric. That's an underlying threat I can't believe nobody has exploited. And I've been saying that since the 90s, but people didn't have a big picture view of Star Trek in a lot of ways. It's Section 31 is everything everywhere all at once. What are you saying? Why not do a poll on here what the next episode Picard will have in it? I think I can do polls in Restream, but I haven't checked to see that. Or I can put it on my socials, if that's what you mean. Well, here's the thing, Duralta. Yes, the Klingon names have kind of wobbled all over the place. We got out of the K conundrum really early on, and by as soon as Star Trek VI, main Klingon character Gorkon was derived because Nick Meyer wanted it to be a take on Gorbachev. So they made Gorbachev into Gorkon, and there you go, bang! You've busted your Klingon K protocol, and now everything's wide open. And you have Valeris for the that was hysterically controversial at the time. Vulcan women always start with the T apostrophe, like Tajan, a very good traditional Vulcan name. But texture, not trivia, and species diversity. We were going to get there anyway. It was going to get to, yes. And now we've got Worf and Gowron and Martok. I think if you had the Klingon augment virus, you had a K. Hi, Mona. You just joined. And thank you for joining Patreons. Yay. Okay, Duralta, you're sad that Discovery is ending. Very quick and completely out of the left starfield that the Riker on the bridge is a changeling. Alan, you are very welcome. Finally, I'm like I'm running a business or something. If I was staking my whole income on Patreon and ramping it up the way some people I know do, and good on them, that would not. But it was always, I do appreciate everybody's support. I finally started doing that so people would have a very simple way to jump in and help us with everything at Trekland. Break Needle. Thank you, Christoph. Boy, Duralta, I got you rolling here. What did Janet, your wife, do for Voyager? Did she write episodes, or what was her job? She was the assistant script coordinator, meaning because Star Trek was so complex, in the old days, she would have been a script typist. She was a script processor back before the writers. They just barely were typing, not typewriters, but they were not keeping up with, they weren't writing in final draft. There was no, even in the 90s, there was no standard. They were still getting used to the older, I shouldn't say that, but they all, Ira and Michael Piller, those guys weren't as adept as the younger guys coming in, and gals. So everybody had their own software, everybody had their own pieces, but they needed a centralized system. So that was one of her main jobs, but it was also about the distribution. It was also keeping up with the colors and the changes. And when they would get notes, I've got pictures of her trying to read Michael Pillar's hen scratch notes and Brandon's hen scratch on pages. They had to take instead of doing it digitally and changing your own, they would get handwritten scribbles, markups and arrows on pages, and have to make sense out of that and have it proved. And then get the big runs to the copy shop on camera, or do small runs in-house, or go and keep up with the color changes and the distribution, and call the PAs in and file away the archival scripts, and also process the spec scripts. Take all that in, make the appointments, stay in touch with, put the mail up every day, keep track of everybody's mailbox. So Lolita, well, first, trying to think, Janet Stranad was the first script coordinator on first season, and Jana Wallace was the script typist assistant, and then she left. The Stranad system is named for her, and then Eric Stillwell had the job, and then went to creation when 2 shows were added, and Alita had script coordinator. But by the end, there was always been an assistant. Then we had, when DS9 and TNG were happening, and then TNG to Voyager, Lolita had an assistant script coordinator. Not that they were assistants like a secretary, but they were doing tons of work. and because there was so much complexity going on and keeping up with it. And they were tracking the people who came in to pitch, whether they were a spec script kid or they were a professional who came in with an agent. And they did a lot of the generating of the script status reports, where the different things were, what they had bought, whether it was a story, who was working on what, just keeping track with all the bureaucracy of the season as far as the writers department. And so, yes, when there were 2 series, there was a person under Lolita for each series, and Janet did that for 5 years. Clear as mud. If you are curious, you should go back. And I regretted it was of the bad timing, because Janet had a really bad cold and she couldn't talk without coughing. But Lolita and I just did a panel for Virtual Trekland, which is up. And she and I talk about those days, the writing room centric part of that. And I just wish, and Janet, I finally got Janet to be a guest on Portal 47. But all of that I think about being old stories and old news, sometimes I fall into that rabbit hole. But we have a whole generation that does it. And then the generation that's, and now the shows are all done digitally, where everything is PDFs and there's not so much hard paper, hard copy to it. But a lot of the tracking still has to be done. It's just not on paper. But the things have to be maintained, typos, corrections, real update corrections, real accidental corrections. All of that still has to be done by the current folks. I think I've had all the, nobody knows what happened to Janet Stranad, but I've had Eric and Lolita and Maggie Allen and then Juan Fernandez as Portal 47 guests. And I've talked to one of the script coordinators from one of the modern shows, because I'm just curious what the digital age looks like there. Okay, so way too long an answer for your question, but there you go, Doralta. Paris, and it was a very short needle this week. How they count and track what people stream is beyond me. Well, when you're the company, Mona, when you are Paramount Plus or Netflix, you obviously know how many customers you have, and there's probably little coding that lets you know what people are watching at home in their little boxes. That's probably automatic and digital. Now, the fact that they're not sharing it with the public, it's proprietary information. If you want to crow about something that's setting records, then oh yeah, but nobody's ranking your middle or your underling shows, or like what started off a hit and then fizzed out. But the thing about Discovery, Netflix is kind of settling on a 3 years. Like after 3 years, the ROA, the return on investment, is seen as negligible unless it's just a super duper huge hit. And in that case, you could say, yay, Discovery. What's weird is, on the other hand, that's what, if it's 10 shows a year, 5 seasons, that's 50. But then Discovery had a few, so let's say 55 episodes, 55, say. Hours, 55 hours of Discovery. Now that's covering 7 years of real time, but 5 seasons of all the older shows, way more episodes. In fact, think about it this way. They have fewer episodes. Enterprise had 97 or 98. Enterprise had almost 40% more, and the original series only had 80 hours. So, yeah, the other 2 failures had far more episodes, but no, their Discovery is not a failure in any way, shape, or form. Had disappointments, yes. It was a miracle that it survived its birth, yes. But that was the pressure, that was the task asked of it. That was its destiny. Should have been Star Trek Destiny. That was their first best destiny. Charlotte, I'm bummed that you're bummed. Yeah. This is true, Christoph. I cannot believe we're about to start daylight savings time, but I'll have to do that math. Yeah. This was a very, very diplomatic, tactful way of putting it, Doralta. Mona, I think so. Thank you for doing that. Mona, I hope if you make it to Starbase Indy this fall, I'm going to be there. So I hope to see you this weekend then. What am I missing here? Yeah. Oh, here we go. The Twitch chat is open around. Oh, that was all Twitch. Oh, okay. Oh, I did not realize that dynamic. See, this is something to think about. Chat pack ahoy. Oh, you guys. What saddens you about Disco was it wasn't a planned finish. Bummer that it'll be able to be called a cancellation for all time. Well, they are reworking the ending. So we'll see what that looks like. Worf has come a long way from, although, Worf was getting funny lines by what, season 2? By season 3, good tea, nice house. He had the conversation with Pulaski about we throw things. They throw things. Yes. Well, I mean, live church, people come early, they have coffee, they hang around a few minutes early, and then watching my wife's on Zoom, it was kind of the same. Everybody gabs and gabs and gabs and gabs, and then they get to the curtain. Then the curtain goes up and they start the show. No, I don't think Worf is a changeling. Oh, I should write 2 books, one of them being a Trek novel. Duralta, if I could do fiction, don't you think I would have done fiction ages ago? That's one of my big regrets is I did when I was a kid. I had a narrative story mind. I wrote plays, and somewhere about the 5th, 6th grade, I read fiction, and somewhere about that, I just became a total nonfiction person. Reading, writing, history. I just don't have it. I wrote one good poem in creative writing in college that won an award. And I read it at Penguicon's Poetry Smash. Poetry Smash? Thank you. Yes, they wrapped. Thank you, Scott. They wrapped Disco's filming in December. They didn't know at the time it was going to be their last season. Yes, they're doing some additional writing. That's been in the trades, but I've heard that through the grapevine also. Few will be recalled. Few of the crew will be recalled. There you go. Right. Exactly, Susan. Now, is it as proper as having a few more episodes and hopefully things don't feel rushed? There you go. There you go. Star Trek's never had that kind of an ending. So there's some more history for you. You have now lived through the time of the surprise cancellation when they cared about finales because, Turnabout Intruder, nobody cared about finales at that time. Alrighty, ready. So coming on. You answered my question, Andrew. She went begrudgingly. Well, you stayed together, right? So it wasn't, nothing was shattered. Okay. Let's see. Well, there is this. Now, Discovery's up there in the 32nd century, so they got everything to themselves, which is what they wanted. They wanted everything to themselves and not have to tie in because that's hard. Oh, I didn't say that, did I? Yeah, but I'm with you, though. Wouldn't hold my breath for a movie. Especially what's going to happen to those sets? What's going to happen to the physicality of it all? How fast? No, I'm just going to say things will probably get repurposed. The stage space, and then I bet a lot of the... See, I said the other day, I'm wondering if they're starting to acquire a warehouse for amortizing future Treks in Toronto, of course, the way we had it here all the years well, starting with the movies, nothing was thrown away. You know, early next gen, they're repurposing shit from the movies like crazy, the TOS movies. But then eventually, even that piles up on their own, and they've got years and years and years. And that's part of the 2006 Christie's auction. You remember that? For the 40th anniversary, that was getting rid of a lot of that warehouse material. I can't claim bad Medors from TOS. I invented that decades ago. All right, Nathaniel. Bad Medors is you. Oh my. How did nobody? Oh, I don't care what species diversity comes along. Oh is not a Vulcan name. Why did no one say? Oh, why did no one see that? Now what? As long as it's not a cliffhanger ending like Legends of Tomorrow apparently gets, and a hopla hop ending, as Enterprise did, a hopla hop. I'm. You've lost me on that one. Maybe that's German. Mona, you want to know what happens to Soooo and Tarina? Well, I do too, especially since Tarina has a good traditional Vulcan name. Slayer of Gowron, how do you take your tea? I know. If you heard my second opinion, I died laughing on that one. Certainly, surely, sure. I think Doug has talked a little bit about this in some of the recent moments. Certainly. Yes, Charlotte, I was howling too. It wasn't so much the opening, it's just that that's exactly what, when she said, "Who the hell are you?" My mind's eye and ear immediately went to, "I am Worf, son of Moog." I just didn't expect it to go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. Daughter of the fifth house, holder of the holy rings of Beta Z, the chalice of reeks. Let's see. Yeah, sorry about that, gang. I didn't think to come back from not sharing. It didn't pop back. Interesting. You're remembering, hi, Stingray. You're still an enigma to me, you know. You're interested in covering the famous KFC Trek commercial where they recreated original series and actors using CG makeup in the 90s? Yes. Whew. If you had chamomile tea in the morning, you'd never get out of bed. Duralta, did someone tell you? And now you know the rest of the story, a reference to I will tell you if nobody beats me to it. Okay, quick, while she's gone. No. Let's see. The guy at the bar with the drop-in Enterprise D medallion thing. I'm guessing. I'm trying to remember. I've got to go back and look at his face to see if he pops up later. It would seem to be a good guess, and I am guessing. I think you're just supposed to not remember that guy. That's not Foster, I don't think, but he's, yeah, glowering there at the thing. No, I think there's more than changelings going on. The staff weapons that Jaffa had are called Matok, as in Martok, as in I'm missing. I'm just never a big stargazer person. See, that whole thing, I had a joke in my second opinion. I said it was the revenge of the mycelial network. And then I realized I sounded maybe too serious. I do not know what's up with that and that visualization of whatever's going on. How many people got writing credits because Ira couldn't type? Now, Nathaniel, they are all good writers. If there was just a pure typist, they would have been an assistant. But Robert Wolf. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Obviously. Oh, a question. Since before my sunburn hunt in space, Michael, when Ensign Tendi showed up and had never been seen sand before, I mused that she must have gone to the French Joseph version of Starfleet Academy, the one that's a space station. Why would 150 member worlds put their every egg in Earth's basket? Mm-hmm. They have since specified that Tendi was too studious to leave the San Francisco Academy and look around. But your point stands, sir. Yeah, exactly. In other words, Janet was basically a nurse, but keeping everything going for the big shots, trying to point out errors. They were all, everybody was tasked with looking for continuity. But the day she came home and said they just had a scene where they say they've got 37 photon torpedoes. And she screamed, like, why would you do that? Why would you either say you've got a limit or say you can't replicate them? No way, no how. And of course, then people started the photon watch. Every time Voyager, it was almost as infamous as the shuttle watch. No, France Joseph. Oh, you're talking. Oh, you guys going back and forth. Why, thank you, Mona. Yeah, we were both very disappointed that Janet wasn't able to join us, which is why I'm really glad that Janet's in the is in the Voyager documentary. I'm sure at least something will survive. Oh, thank you, Scott. Everybody got this? The Voyager panel, the VTC panel. Thank you, sir. Any chance of the spec script? Well, see, that came because Michael came in late. They had 26 slots to fill for stories in those days, and he was overwhelmed. The problem now is there's only 10 slots a year, and they have 47 producers on the shows. So it's not an issue now. So probably not. But now there are the comics and the books and a little bit tighter continuity back and forth. So there's that. There's that. But I hear you. I hear you. And whatever I did, you're welcome. Oh, Susan, really? Being an ex-secretary PA back in the 70s and 80s, I know the pain of reading everybody else's scribble and trying to translate it into something that people would understand. Also juggling numerous tasks at the same time. Yes, you were multitasking before they had a name for it, right? Yeah. Yes. Yes. And yes, which is why I always say Franz Joseph Schnabelt, just because he had a last name. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, Mona, I will see you then. That's Thanksgiving weekend starting the Friday, folks. If you're up in the upper Midwest around, you're in the Illinois, Ohio, Southern Michigan, Northern Kentucky drainage pool, then come make it to Starbase Indy, which is always the Friday, Saturday, Sunday after Thanksgiving Thursday. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that Franz Joseph Schnabelt. Let's see. Hi, Troy. I think you've been with us before, but thanks for popping in and popping up. And no, you cannot wait for this week's Picard. What are you saying? Okay, Nathaniel. Contrarian, what do you say? 5 seasons in 7 years is a satisfying place to stop. It will soon be the point at which keeping the crew together will be difficult, even comical. To explain, well, they've been coming and it would be, but they haven't been this tight normal crew. They've had people coming and going and hopping centuries. And I mean, I hear what you're saying. Normally, I would totally agree. I haven't seen that as that big of an issue here, but for other reasons, I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Introduce so many concepts and moods. Like we don't care about continuity. Oh, did I say that? Put out some great episodes like If Memory Serves and the one about the language. Yes, they were definitely upping their game every single season, especially when they started allowing to have science consultants. Hi, Timothy. Timothy John Haywood. I know you've been with us before, but glad to have you. Terra Prime dealt with human-centric idealism for Earth. We all know how that ended. I like your idea. Well, Terra Prime was pre-Federation. So it was just a matter of being xenophobic in your own home. But if the Federation is supposed to be equal allies, equal membership, it hasn't felt very equal in how a lot of things are doled out. Now, you could get away with some of that by saying it's historic, because in the early days, it was just the 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and nobody else had the infrastructure and resources set up, or everybody who had been reeling from Earth was technically the only one fighting the Romulans. The rest came to the aid later, but that's what I see it. The Federation is supposed to be, you've got all these people who are equal. and obviously you saw, if nothing else, the Babel Conference over Corden, and you saw Tellarites and Andorians and Vulcans at each other's throats, literally. So not everything is, it's not all happy dappy. So they actually have real politics. Now, whether it's about actual issues and not just nationalism versus each other, I don't know. But I think representation matters. And I think if Earth got all the goody sites, they've since talked about, every once in a while hear about the such Relva 7, where Wesley took his psych test. Your very long answer, which I can't show all at one time. But you're saying the Federation is not only human-centric, but it is American-centric. Yes, theories. And that's where the 60s and the 70s started. But I'm thinking by the 90s and onward, they tried to start liberalizing that and not have it be quite so American-centric, even with Starfleet Command and Starfleet Academy and the Federation Council all in San Francisco. You actually think that I would post this, but you wrote it all in one long blog. And it won't show. The Federation was probably more Vulcan-centric, with them being one of the founding members and helping to shape it into something fit for their species' purpose as a founding member. Oh, yeah. Well, I've been spouting off about this for 20 or 30 years, but yes, and pass it along to Terry Matalis. Okay. I said Matalis again. I did that like once about 4 months ago. Like, where did that come from? Enterprise had a rushed, surprise, canceled ending. No, they knew 4 years was going to be it. They were hoping against hope. It was all the optimists were holding on. They knew as they were filming In a Mirror Darkly Part 2 that it was for real. And no, it was so not rushed that Rick and Brannon had enough time to say, "Hi, Manny, we'll take the last slot back," because they were looking at it as the end of not the end of Enterprise, but the end of 18 years of modern TV Trek, the Berman era. And they had enough time to write that story. Badly, but they had enough time to write that story. Oh, yeah. This is why we got These Are the Voyages, not Terra Primus finale. Yes, but we all know what the official finale of Enterprise is. These Are the Voyages, just that alternate reality wacko feel-good fan fiction episode. Yeah, I include all that too, Rose. Right. Well, they'll have that to do historical flashbacks, whatever they want to do with that. They'll keep a lot of that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the modern attitude is being so disposable. We'll see what they actually keep, or what maybe goes under the wing of licensing to keep in their archive warehouses. Hey, CW. McCall? No. Do I think the other new Trek shows are in danger of cancellation? No. Strange New just started, and everybody's in love with it. But Picard's ending, and the other two animateds have seasons ahead, and they're considerably cheaper to produce. So it's more a matter of, are we going to still have 3 live actions or just 2? I think that's, there's 2 titles announced. You've got some hungry people out here that the audience may demand they get a show at some point. Terramatalis. So we'll see. Okay. Oh, Hopla Hoppa Rush. See, it's some German, I guess. Some German media terms. Okay. Internet claims Hopla Hop means double quick or lickety split. Lickety split. I always think of Bob Gunton's Warden. Okay. What did it for you was when he seamlessly went into the offer of tea. Well, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely, tootly. Would Worf have been sentimental enough to say he was the widower of Jadzia? Well, I saw someone else also say, why didn't Worf say the father of Alexander? And that he was a negligent father once again. There you go. Former mate of Kalar. Co-parent of, yeah. What kills you is the same amount of time between core on TOS and DS9 has passed between Worf on DSC to Picard. No. You had basically a century from the 2260s to the 2370s. You had basically 105, 110 years. DS9 to Picard is only about 25. Just saying. Just saying. But thank you for hey, Troy. Oh boy, we're really into the... Do I think we'll get a spinoff from Picard before we get one from Discovery? Well, if by spinoff Section 31 is Michelle Yeoh, that's a spinoff. If the Academy show is indeed, and I don't know, but if that's a vehicle for Tilly and some of the junior cadets that we saw in the 32nd, and maybe they use that to keep the 32nd century alive and being developed, and they can amortize some of those sets and props and costumes that way. If either one of the 2 titles out there are spinoffs from Discovery, I would say no. That we won't get one from Picard before we get one from Discovery. And we'll see. We'll see what the fandom... We'll see how fandom storms the gates when Picard is done. If people just melt down and wet their pants in one giant global Picard orgasm, we'll see what they react to. Because they did react to, in the beginning, to Anson and Pike. But the world was much simpler then. There was one intended next in the pipeline, as they were trying to fan up for 3 or 5, and maybe it was easier to be a hot in the pan. That's what I said, Charlotte. You said it. You typed it before I said it, I'm sure. Okay. So Zahir, you popped in. I was waiting. So, and now you know the rest of the story was a feature that American broadcaster Paul Harvey, who was a journalist and a newsman, and then later in life he went really right wing. But Paul, you can find some things about Paul Harvey, I'm sure. But he had a segment where he would tell you a surprise story, something you didn't know, and he would start off, like, well, when he was a farmer's kid in Dubuque, Iowa, in the early 20s, nobody ever thought about him as he would start off that obliquely and weave this story and weave this story and weave this story. And then he would get to the end and say, because that 12-year-old farmer's kid who saved 42 head and waved away a tornado and saved, he would recap the whole story. That farmer's kid soon became the president of Earth and saved us all from World War III. He would throw that, because that was George Washington V. Yes, and now you know the rest of the story. But the whole point was it was a surprise reveal at the end that you had no idea was coming. A really surprising fact about something from history or whatever. And that was his thing. And now you know the rest of the story. And he did that for, 30 or 40 years. And that's where it came from. And some of us actually still remember that. He was doing that up into the 90s, I think. Off the top of my head. Don't think Worf will ever be over Jadzia's death. I hope not. I would like to see him, not in a comparative way, but it would be nice to see him mention Kalar. But he was young and crazy then. Stand by for news. Yeah. His dentures getting in the way there later on. Yes. Well, I wanted to go back and look at that. He got a name, Ensign Foster. It would be nice if he was. No, not me. Not me. That was Janet and Bob Gillen on the DS9 side later on. In the beginning, it was Jana Wallace and Daryl Tolles. In fact, dear friends, this is in the TNG Companion, but in Descent Part 2, when they're on the planet and they've got the shuttlecraft out on the shuttle pods on location. Ooh. Riker and Worf are on the ground with some security people, and there's 2 security folks. And one of them's Guy Vardaman. And he says, Wallace and Tolles, come with me. They named the 2 security guards for the 2 assistant script coordinators then, Jana Wallace and Daryl Tolles. And that is how Guy Vardaman first got his longtime extras. He was a stand-in, but when he was on camera in Yellow, in Ops Yellow, he got the name Wallace, named for Jana Wallace, but he was a guy. And then later on for late, what was it? Eye of the Beholder? Anyway, so they needed a first name for him and came up with Darian. May have been him. It may have been Mike. I don't know. So Darian Wallace got a full name, kind of recording how Guy had been there for all that time. And there we go. And now we know. Now I know the rest of that story. CW. Wish you could have met Lily. Your con days are over totally, completely. You can get on and on occasionally the Zoom call. Okay. Hey, Wade. Well, it's about damn time you got here. Of course, I'm a few minutes behind myself. You think that Worf will join Jadzia and Tovokor this series? Maybe even get a Terry Farrell cameo in a Death Dream? They can even play this song during the scenes if they want, which I can't post unless you repost it. It's too long. Timothy, it's too long. It's too long. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Paul Jones. Hi, Paul. Was there ever plans for a new series toward the end of Enterprise run on TV? I recall seeing something about it wrong. This was a movie. There were plans for a movie for the Romulan War. Yes, not John Logan, but Eric Jendresen. And I have it. I think I have. Anyway, it was out there. I'd love to talk to him about it. It was out. It was a script, and Rick had it ready to be a script, but his deal was running out, and no one was renewing it. And Rick's time was up. His fate matched the fate of the numbers that Enterprise was getting, and the fact that Nemesis didn't do well. So you're only as good as your current thing. You definitely get the feeling. But thanks for jumping in, Paul. Good to see you. And Charlotte, get the feeling from some of the actors season 4 of Enterprise, they knew it was the end simply based on their acting. You mean good, bad, or sad? But yeah, people knew they were on the bubble, as they say now. It was going to take a huge spike in numbers. The good thing about These Are the Voyages is that we could ignore Trip's death because it is historical fiction. I'm sure this idea amuses Gunnar Trenier. Yeah. Well, it was all a Section 31 plot in the books later on. 30 years. For what, Zahir? This is entirely true. Oh no. We're back, hopefully. Okay. Had a streaming note there. Streaming weakness. Well, CW, I hope you can too. Yes, they did. They had a downtime, and yes, absolutely. Jerry, hello. Good to see you here if you're trekking along with us. Yeah. 30 years for the character, but not for the actor, but not for the characters. Yes. Hi, Voltrams. Good to see you live. I enjoyed seeing your comment. Thank you for doing that and helping up our numbers on YouTube. S&W is more or less a spinoff from Disco. Yeah, I know. As weird as that feels. Wait, what? What did I do? What did I do, Charlotte? What did I do? Now this is something that we got to get caught up on. I've been meaning to get in everybody's face about this. We might have a writer's strike, y'all. I might have to put my topic next week aside, and we'll see. With the impending writer's strike, could this affect any new announcements of Trek shows and current ones? Sure it could. Could this be repeated the 1989 Too Short a Season with them from the Skin of Evil clip show? I would think they'd be able to be more finesse about it, because those days they were dealing with network delivery times and things that they can pick their own time now, and they're not selling ads and worrying about all that commitment. But yeah, I need to get up on this, but we could be on the precipice of a writer's strike. I can't believe it's been 15 years since the OSA. I just did some historical motivational things from that, and yeah. And that little boy who no one liked grew up to be Roy Cohn. And now you know the rest of the tragedy. Yeah. I could write the fiction for George Washington. Well, considering he had no kids. And yeah. Duralta, well, it was my pleasure. It's just old pop culture stuff here. Hi, Carl. And yes, I did. I mentioned that on Second Opinion too. It was just dropped in there where somebody who didn't know, it didn't bother them unless they wondered what the Great Link was for a minute. But yes, it had us all verklempt. When do I think we may have some news? Well, Troy, here's my guess. First Contact Day is just another month away. And the studio usually marks that and has fun with it. So unless this year they're going to mark Frontier Day which is about a week or two later, when the Enterprise NX-01 first set sail as the first deep warp Earth ship. We'll see, but I think sometime earlier, mid-April, maybe, with tied into one of those things. Maybe that's when we will. That'd be my next best guess. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christoph. 94 minutes coming up, twice 47. I think we're pretty much there. Yes. Some moments of overacting say it ain't so. I'll go back and watch. This is not an editorial comment, guys. Sorry. Yeah. Possible writer's strike might wreak havoc with all the best laid plans, just like a pandemic. My God, we just get through that and now it's turning around there. First Contact Day, salmon. You know, if Lower Decks does nothing else for the franchise, they've given us First Contact Day salmon. That's why I don't celebrate First Contact Day. Kidding. Well, there you go. I think we are at the end of the chat. Gang. So that's going to do it, I think, for us. Unless somebody bops in here with something mind-boggling at the end. But once again, where's my gang? What? Where did they go? How strange. Okay. Well, I thanked them earlier, but you too can be a Patreon for $5 or $10 a month with the shout out. And now, yes, with actual access to these older interviews that I've been, but still so informative. The technology, I was just watching how many of them people didn't have their own webcams for. The first one is even audio rapidly changed, and they knew there was a pandemic coming in 3 or 4 years, and they thought they'd better up their game. But yes, patreon.com/Trekland Live. I really do appreciate all the help. We're looking at maybe upping the game here with a couple of apps and taking on some more streaming game at Trekland, and that might be a thing. Oh, here they are. They were hiding from me. Once again, so much, everybody. You too could appreciation every week. Thanks so much. Again, Trek Files, it's on hiatus, but a perfect time to go back and research what you hadn't heard before. Go back to the early seasons. Go back to some of the folks that we have lost in the intervening years. Dorothy Fontana among them, Richard Arnold, another. Yeah, we had them on for several visits, which I'm so grateful for. Otherwise, gang, it's Larry Nemechek at Twitter and yeah, Mastodon. What's happened with the great Twitter scare? Sometime we'll see what's going on in Post and Spoutable. We'll see what shakes down. But Larry Nemechek's Trekland is the place on YouTube. Please subscribe, and Facebook and Instagram. Fun stuff there. Portal 47 is where you can just jump with. We've had some folks doing it lately. Portal 47 is our mini-con all year long. We have guests. We have the round table. I'm sharing out of my archives. Yeah, we dive deeper, far deeper than I do here in my little hour with you every week. We'll see what's coming up. This is episode 298. You know what that means? 299 is in another week. Can't wait to be with you then. Thanks so much for joining us again. Check out, there'll be a TeePublic store if you want to get some Trekland swag, the computer cases. You can get your own copy of the hashtag stack, your own Trekwell mug or glass. And you can get Cadet Alice, my cutie. I've got to get some Cadet Alice's posted. Got to get on all that. Been a busy spring and winter comeback. Got to finish a documentary one of these decades too. Got to finish watching Picard right now and wonder what's coming down the pike. Franchise as a whole. And I will be here every Tuesday to at least highlight some, if not all of it, with you. All check out that we're trying to make it Second Opinion Saturdays one too. as well as with our European friends next week. That's going to be it for us. So, everybody, not watching later because this is on, but I do appreciate everybody. Do the things, stay healthy, try to stay woke. Check your sources. That's what I mean when I say that. Be open to what you may never have heard before or realized before. That little rut you were raised in may have been a rut for a reason. Oh. Trek well, everybody.